The application of digital technologies and reforms in telecommunications have led to a whole new emergence of supply chains, not in goods only, but also in services. This is better known as services outsourcing. It's also known as BPO, business process outsourcing, which constitutes nothing other than a supply chain, a cross-border international supply chain, but in services. Now, traditionally, services providers were completely constrained in any ability to capture, store, or possess the value of the intangible. It was almost impossible to create a pathway to market because services tended to be delivered and consumed simultaneously. If I go to the dentist, as the dentist delivers the dental service, so I consume it. While I am being educated, I consume the education service as it is being delivered to me. It is very difficult to separate that personal face-to-face interaction out into a pathway to market. The two activities of production and consumption have typically, historically, been simultaneous. Things have changed because the application of digital technology enables us to capture the critical ingredient of services, which is the solution, the knowledge, the expertise, to package it in digital format, which can then be commoditized, sold as a product, ownership can be established, production can be scaled up, and trade can suddenly take place. So a video with me speaking can be repeated multiple times. Me standing up in a classroom is direct, one-on-one, consumed as it is produced. It is only when it is converted into a digital format that I can scale up that production and that I can trade it across a border. The outcome of this process, this business process transformation, is that we are seeing globally integrated services firms. We are also seeing born global micro SMEs. Services intermediates have now become the fastest growing component of world trade today. These are the kinds of services I'm talking about: education and R&D, ICT, audiovisual, all the professional services, cultural and creative services, design. All of these now involve expertise that can be captured in digital format. We first saw the emergence of business process outsourcing as a really big export industry in South Asia. And at the same time as this explosion of activity in India in particular around Bangalore, which was completely independent of manufacturing, we started to see that in fact you could leapfrog, you could skip the whole manufacturing stage of development. You could in fact go from agrarian communities direct to services communities. And as the understanding of what was happening in South Asia improved, we started to see other developing countries shift towards services much sooner and at a much lower per capita GDP level than had been the case in the traditional development trajectory. This is interesting from a development policy perspective because it means that some latecomers can just literally leapfrog the traditional approach and avoid the manufacturing middle income trap. This is World Bank data, which shows, you can see the red line there, the low income line. These countries have services. This is the contribution of services trade to GDP growth. And you can see there the contribution has increased so much recently over the last decade that it exceeds the high income country level. Here we have countries including some very low income, some least developed economies really beginning to be able to catch up on the trade front because they have moved to business process outsourcing. So what does a services value chain look like? Just as services themselves have that degree of intangibility, it can be hard to visualize a services value chain. So I've just taken a slice of one value chain. It's a real-time slice, not a 24/7 slice, and it's regional because it's in the time zone, because all of these players need to work together in the same time zone. So I've taken the IBM office in Japan. You can see there it's bringing in its back office services from Dalian in China. Human resources is all done in Manila. Procurement is done in Shenzhen in China. Accounts payable is done in Shanghai. The accounting is done in Kuala Lumpur. Very interestingly, Brisbane is doing the help desk and the customer service, partly because we have a strong Japanese-speaking community in Brisbane, and IBM has found that when a customer in Tokyo rings for help, the language ability is more critical than the technical ability, which IBM can teach. So there's Australia playing in the Japanese-speaking market in Tokyo. Now, if we were to map not just the real-time functions, you would see R&D services coming in from all over the world. And you would see a whole series of other banking functions coming in and data analytics functions coming in overnight from other time zones. I'm just looking here at those that need to take place in real time together during roughly the same hours. So following the model of mapping a goods value chain, here is an attempt to map a services value chain. So we're not going to start at the beginning with land, labour and capital. We're going to start with talent, skills and ideas, because those are the key ingredients, the key inputs in any services industry. We're going to start with diagnostics. We've got to diagnose the customer's problem. We've got to imagine a solution to it, and we have to innovate. We've got to get a team together to do it. That can often be the most difficult thing. And sometimes we have to fly the team in and out to get them together, or to work virtually over the internet. We might want to contract out the middle office. We might even want to outsource some of the back office. But the front office is very important, because that's where you re-engineer your final output to the customer's satisfaction. It's back in the face-to-face stage. And then, of course, there's all the after-sales aspects of any services industry. And to whom might this service be sold? To almost all the other services industries, because what is really happening is the services intermediates going into other services industries. It's a much bigger process, but it happened much later than the fragmentation into value chains in the goods sector. So let's try and draw it. We're going to have that back office, which might be the call centres and the accounts. You'll have a middle office that does some innovation and also does some product design. Your front office is going to be very